whoever is behind this put together an incredibly sophisticated program. Just the idea that you would have multiple operators in multiple cities with the ability to get onto a plane with either the weaponry or false weaponry or explosives to be able to pull off a hijacking, again, probably with a locked cockpit.
3 of them, maybe.
Again, a hijacking and another hijacking and another, and maybe one that's still aloft, that you would be able to, and this is the part that has confounded me, and you touched on this, how do you make a pilot in a plane full of passengers into a suicide pilot, a kamikaze to slam into a building? And if you do not, how do you, as the terrorist, have the level of sophistication to take over the controls of a sophisticated airliner jet plane to be able to fly accurately into targets like hitting dead center into the Pentagon, which is a low building?
You heard John McCarthy saying knocking off telephone poles, knocking down telephone poles as it came along.
Dead hits into the World Trade Center, one at the center, one near the top. As you pointed out, there's a lot of mystery to this, confounding mystery. An incredible scope.
2 of the planes that were hijacked and then intentionally crashed took off from Logan International Airport in Boston. NBC's Chris Hansen is in Boston this morning. Chris, it appears that if there are any breaks in the investigation in the early stages, they've come there in Boston.
That's exactly right, Matt. Good morning. In many terrorism cases, it appears the first and most significant leads come from vehicles that were either involved in the crime or abandoned after the crime, and such appears to be the case here. Yesterday, law enforcement authorities here in Boston got a call from a man who had flown out on a different flight, got to his location, saw what happened at the World Trade Center, and something clicked in his mind. He said that he had an altercation in one of the parking garages here with a couple of, as he described, Arabic men. And he described the car that they had. When law enforcement authorities checked out that car, they looked inside and they saw flight manuals in Arabic. They were then able to connect that car, a 4-door Mitsubishi that was rented apparently right here at the airport, to 2 individuals, brothers who had United Arab Emirates passports. One of those brothers is an experienced pilot.
A very interesting point earlier today, I thought worth repeating, that in terms of men who intend to become members of a suicide mission, they're not or have not appeared today to be particularly concerned about what information or evidence or paper trail they left behind.
No, they did leave a trail behind. I mean, if you look at the Logan Airport leads, they had an argument with another motorist, which attracted attention. That led police to the car, which led the FBI to the hotel, which led them to the 3 people they're looking at now. One of the interesting things they found in that hotel room was a lot of luggage, more than it seemed to be appropriate for the 3 people they found, and hair dye, which now they're wondering if the people who were leaving were going to use to change their appearance so that they wouldn't look to other witnesses later how they looked to the witnesses who could identify them.
There was a talk about a training video in the trunk of the car. Is any confirmation of that?
Yes, in the automobile found at Logan Airport, a training video on how to fly a commercial aircraft. In luggage found at the airport, Arabic language training manuals for flying planes. This, the white...
Thanks to our affiliate in Boston, WCVB, we actually have a picture of the car which they were taking away to search.
White Mitsubishi Mirage that they were keyed into by a witness who said he had an argument with them in the airport, apparently over parking space. Thought nothing of it at the time, got to his destination, heard about the explosion, that one of the flights emanated from Boston, put some things together in his head, used his cell phone, and called the Massachusetts State Police and the FBI.
Terribly sophisticated plan. I mean, it must have been in the planning for 1 or 2 years. I mean, and pilot training and simulators. How can some group keep that secret?
In Portland, the suspected hijackers bought one-way tickets from Portland, then connecting to American Flight 11, Boston to Los Angeles. One checked bag authorities believe is linked to the terrorist missed that connection, and inside that bag, sources say, was a copy of the Koran, a videotape on how to fly commercial planes, and a chart calculating the fuel consumption by airliners.
Do federal authorities know much about any of them? They do. They have learned about 2 of them, right? Or at least one of them?
Well, they know quite a bit about 2 of them. They may know more about others that we just haven't heard about yet, but they certainly know quite a bit about the 2. because what the sequence of events here is the passenger manifest list from one of the flights that left Boston leads them, along with a report from a passenger who just happened to get in an argument apparently with one of the drivers when they parked their car at Logan Airport. That led authorities to that car. The car registration in turn and some additional documents found in the car lead them to the Venice, Florida flight school, where two men who've been publicly named, their picture has been now publicly shown. Those two were known to have entered the United States sometime in the past year, have taken flight training in Venice, Florida for at least a year. They told the flight instructors that they had just come from Hamburg, Germany, and interestingly enough, German authorities in Hamburg today detained someone in connection with this case, and they also gave their passports. So a large number of documentary leads that the FBI can follow. They also used cash and credit cards to buy tickets and rent cars and hotel rooms. So, you know, this was a very well-planned attack in terms of the fact that no one seemed to know about it. It was carried off apparently by design. But they left a huge trail of clues behind them, lots of documentary evidence. They weren't trying very hard to cover their tracks, apparently.
Yeah, I thought
One
that
other
was,
thing,
oh, I'm
Katie.
sorry, go ahead, Pete.
Sure. Okay, one other thing. At least a couple of these hijackers show up on an FBI database. Once the FBI got the names of the suspected hijackers, they entered them into their enormous database and did get what they call some hits, indicating that some of these names were at least suspected of being associated with terrorist groups.
That was supposed to be my last question, but one that comes to mind, that just how large a paper trail some of these suspects have left in this country, rental car agreements, you know, going to flight school here in this country. Was that surprising to you?
Not surprising to me at all, because at the end game here is destruction, and of course their own self-destruction. They're pretty open in a sense, but they also keep it pretty close to them, Katie.
All right, Senator Richard Shelby and Senator Bob Graham. Again, gentlemen, thank you both very much for talking with us this morning.
33-year-old Mohammed Atta, believed to be one of the suicide pilots, trained to fly right here in the United States, attending this flight school in Venice, Florida, with his younger cousin Marwan al-Shahi. Both in school here for 7 months last year, flying this twin-engine Seneca for their commercial pilot's licenses. NBC News has learned they each received FAA commercial pilot's licenses December 21st last year. The designated pilot examiner who tested Atta and his cousin saying neither stands out in his memory.
They were just average people. If there had been anything in particular, I'm sure I would have remembered it, but they were just two more pilots that went through.
Flight school owner Rudy Deckers saying 60% of his students are foreigners.
Like everybody else, I'm absolutely shocked.
Ali Azan from Oman, a fellow student pilot, remembers Atta saying he was from Egypt, his cousin from the United Arab Emirates, both men keeping to themselves.
I tried to invite them a lot of times to come out with us, and that did not.
FBI agents in Vero Beach, Florida, serving search warrants on a location where other suspected suicide pilots may have once lived. In Hollywood, Florida overnight, investigators using infrared and ultraviolet lights to find fingerprints and other clues at a house where it's believed Atta rented a room. A similar scene in Hamburg, Germany, where both Atta and his cousin once had an apartment. Police there sealing the neighborhood, then taking a woman into custody for questioning. But where do all the clues lead investigators? Like this car rented by al-Shahi, now at FBI headquarters in Miami. Agents found an address in the glove box that took them to a post office box at a mailboxes, etc. 40 miles away. That box in yet another man's name.
And the authorities now wanting to know who that man is, trying to locate him, to talk to him. The investigators not only want to find the evidence that they're boxing up, but what that evidence will lead them to in some sort of, where was the finances coming for all of this? Where was the money coming from? One of the records that they found that we also have a copy of is a car rental agreement that Mohammed Atta
was able to do just last month, and he used a Visa card. So the authorities right over here, the FBI, have that information. They're looking at it, and they're trying to find out where the money was coming from, and does it point back to anybody in particular, Osama bin Laden, or where was the money coming from? Matt?
Vince, do you want to make some comments about this?
Yeah, Peter, I think that Tony makes some good points about the complexity and the sophistication of the operation. But I think also we have to see what kind of organizations in the past have been willing to do such a coordinated attack. And,
why is that a clue?
Because it's a pattern. We see people who committed suicide in these operations. So that points us away from a secular organization to a religiously oriented group.
These people that are attacking us, recognizing they are a small group, they are religious fanatics, and
there's still some guys running around that they're not quite sure about, or they're not quite sure there aren't guys running around who want to carry out further attacks as soon as planes are back in the air. What do you know about this crazed determination to do this kind of damage from these people?
Well, we know that religiously motivated zealots who bastardize religions are the hardest to deter and the hardest to infiltrate.
We're dealing here with religious fanaticism, and in that set of beliefs, these attackers believe that they have the approval of God.
Atta and his cousin kept to themselves, except for last Thursday at this bar in Hollywood, Florida. It's believed both men came in, drank heavily, and then refused to pay the bill. FBI agents showing Atta's passport photo to bar staff and listening to the manager recount the argument.
If there's an issue where you can't pay your bill or something, just tell me, okay? Let's stop, let's cut to the chase here. And the guy got like very, very offended, and he said to me, he said, "Oh, I can pay my bill. I'm an airline pilot." And I was like, "Okay." And that's what I told the FBI agents, and they were like, "Oh, really?" And
Now, FBI agents are serving search warrants in various locations around Florida. They served a search warrant a short time ago in Vero Beach, Florida. And now, about a half hour ago, agents, along with local police, moved in on an apartment complex in Hollywood, Florida, where they are also serving yet another search warrant. At this point, no idea what they're finding at these locations, but the agents are boxing up what they do find, and they're bringing it back here to their command center, which is under extreme heavy guard. The FBI's leads in Florida growing exponentially. FBI agents visiting a strip club in Daytona Beach. Just hours before the hijackings, 3 Middle Eastern men there hinted at the violence to come.
One of the gentlemen actually making the statement, well, America's going to see blood and wait till tomorrow.
Now, tonight, the FBI has dispatched agents to Hamburg, Germany, to an apartment that German authorities went into yesterday. That's a home where both Atta and al-Shahi, the 2 suspected suicide bombers who were here in Florida, once lived. And according to German authorities, that apartment is a known safe haven, a known safe house for agents of Osama bin Laden. Tom?
Thanks very much, NBC's Kerry Sanders. And joining me now is the man who has overall responsibility.